April 30th, 1945. Hitler slides the mag into his Walther PPK. On the ground next to him, Eva Braun has cyanide foam spilling out of her mouth. This whole Third Reich thing hadn't gone to plan. But things can always get worse, something the former Fuhrer is about to find out. One gunshot later, he wakes up feeling unusually hot. He looks up and he sees he's sitting in front of a giant stone door with the words, "Abandon all hope, ye who enter here," written above it. Before Hitler can even put the pieces together, a winged demon in a red cloak appears in front of him in a grand puff of smoke. "Welcome to the Inferno, Addie," the demon says, helping him off the ground. "Normally Virgil does the meet and greets, but he's not a fan. Name's Mephistopheles, or Mephisto for short." Hitler's head is still throbbing from the bullet to the temple. Tour guide for what? "To the circles of hell, Herr Hitler. Have you ever read Dante? Mussolini did. Every circle features a personalized punishment for every type of sinner you could imagine. And we are gonna pick the perfect one for you. We need to move. You really don't want to keep Satan waiting. He's a stickler for timekeeping." Hitler has questions. In his own mind, he's the good guy, despite the fact that all of his minions were black. They had skulls on their hats, they killed millions in death camps, and part of that was exactly why he's here. In Dante's Inferno, only unrepentant sinners go to hell. People who regret their crimes and try to make amends are more likely to work off their sins in purgatory for a while before going on to heaven. But Hitler, he doesn't regret starting his genocidal war, he only regrets losing it. With a snap of his fingers, Mephisto takes Hitler to the Inferno's glorified lobby. The first circle, Limbo. Hitler is pretty surprised by what he sees, a lush green field underneath a gray sky where a giant stone castle waits. It's like stepping into a painting of medieval Germany. Mephisto beckons Hitler to follow him inside. Inside the castle is a strange bunch, babies and children wailing in their cribs, ancient tribesmen, Greek and Roman statesmen. It's a history fan's dream to stand amongst these figures, and Hitler is confused about what all these people did to get here. The punishment here isn't even about pain and torture, it's just the cold indifference of being in a place where God's love can't reach you. "Limbo is the hell of the unbaptized and virtuous pagans," Mephisto says. "And seeing as you were baptized in 1904 and nothing about you is virtuous, you don't belong here, but I feel like you should still see it." Hitler sneers. "And why is that, demon?" "Because I want to show you that there are parts of hell that are kinder than the conditions you put innocent people through, Adolf." Mephisto replies, "Think about that when I'm showing you what's to come." Mephisto snaps his fingers again, and they're in a new place, the second circle, lust. There's none of the comforts that he saw in the previous circle. This is a dark and terrible cavern, full of huge sharp rocks. Immediately, a huge gust of constant wailing wind sweeps Hitler off his feet, like getting sucked into a hurricane. He screams as he takes to the air and is thrown around the seemingly infinite cavern as Mephisto flaps his wings to follow. "Mein Gott, what is happening?" Hitler screams over the roar of the wind. "Look around you, Hitler," Mephisto says. "Welcome to the lust circle. Want to get blown in life? You get blown for eternity here. Get it?" That's when Hitler notices other people are trapped in the horrific tempest. Strangers in their underwear. But wait, they aren't all strangers. He spots a familiar face. Oscar Derlewanger, the leader of the infamous Derlewanger prison brigade who treated the innocents as sexual playthings. "He died a few months after you. Few Polish guardsmen had real fun with him," Mephisto says casually. "It won't be the last familiar face you see down here, Adolf." "But why am I here?" Hitler questions. "I criminalize sexual degenerates." Mephisto shakes his head. "No, you criminalized gay people. Shall we talk about the special bond between you and your half-niece, Gaily Raubel, or the shop girl in Obersalzberg that you proposed to when you were 37, or the fact that Eva Braun was 17 when you met her too? And how old were you?" "Oh, that's right, 40. Hitler doesn't have much to say after that. All he can do is watch in horror as the giant serpentine body of King Minos slithers into view, the judge of all sinners on Dante's Circle of Lust. "I was wondering when this guy would show up down here," Minos says. "Shall I begin?" Mephisto calls a rain check. There's plenty of other nightmares to see first. The guiding demon clicks his fingers again, and the wind is replaced with a terrible torrent of rain. They're now in the third circle, Gluttony. Compared to the dry cold of the eternal wind tunnel of lust, Hitler immediately finds himself knee-deep in filthy, stinking mud, surrounded by writhing bodies. It's below freezing. "The circle of gluttony fits you like a glove, Adolf," Mephisto quips. "I've read your files. When you weren't taking more meth than the entire city of Albuquerque, you were sometimes eating 2 pounds of chocolate a day and adding sugar to your wine when it wasn't sweet enough for you." Through chattering teeth, Hitler replies, "What, is it a sin to eat chocolate now? It is when you start a war where almost 25 million people die of hunger." That's when Hitler recognizes the faces in the mud below him. SS brass served lavish meals by concentration camp prisoners whose bones could be seen through their skin. German soldiers who had shot starving prisoners. People so desperate they needed to eat worms out of the ground to survive, risking it all by trying to sneak bread into Jewish ghettos. These murderous soldiers had then gone home to warm meals that very same evening. There's also Cerberus, the giant mythic three-headed hound who guards the gates of Hades in Greek myth. In Dante's Inferno, Cerberus wanders the muddy fields of the circle of gluttony, devouring unfortunate sinners with his 3 hungry heads. Though, of course, this won't kill them. Hell's punishments are eternal and they'll just all end up back in the mud. There isn't any time for that, though. There is far worse circles for Hitler to experience. Mephisto snaps his fingers, and he and Hitler are now standing in a terrible, barren wasteland. The 4th circle, greed. Here, desperate figures are weighed down by bags of money slung around them with chains. They're forced to push huge rocks across the ground, their muscles straining and their bones breaking under the strain. How are you liking the greed circle, Adolf? Mephisto asks. Hitler is furious. I am not greedy. Would a greedy man return prosperity to his country? I did what I did for the good of Germany. And yet you made yourself tax-exempt. How selfless of you, Mephisto retorts. Suddenly, chains wrap around Hitler, weighing down his body with the tremendous burden of his earthly riches, the multiple salaries, the book sales from peddling his fascist ideology, his slush funds, his Mercedes. And that's when Hitler notices all the faces around him. Henry Ford, Edwin and Helena Bechstein, Fritz Thyssen, Gustav Krupp, the wealthy whose generous donations buoyed Hitler's ambition, all because they believed that they'd be better off under his tyrannical rule. And this is where they'll spend the rest of their eternity for their trouble. Hitler is fuming. How dare this demon mock him after all he's achieved in his life? Now listen here, you wretched fiend, Hitler snorts. I'm a tactical genius, the greatest leader in the history of the world. Mephisto rolls his eyes. Calm down, Adolf. Anger will get you nowhere. Well, except where we're going next. With another snap of Mephisto's demonic fingers, Hitler finds himself fighting for his life in the wretched waters of the river Styx. And we mean that, literally. He is physically fighting other people trapped in the water, fueled by unimaginable rage. And that's because they were now officially in the 5th circle, anger, or wrath if you're old school. Those who are filled with anger and hatred in life are doomed to brawl in the filthy swamp-like waters of the cursed river. Those who are more passively angry, the sullen and resentful, remain constantly drowning beneath the waters. Nearby, Mephisto is sitting on a wooden boat being rowed around by the dead. Hitler, being the soul of a 56-year-old man who was never exactly Adonis while he was alive, is getting the living crap beaten out of him by all the other rageaholics in the Styx. He screams for some kind of relief from the drowning and the beating. This is the future you made for yourself, Adolf, Mephisto calls out from the boat. You turned wrath into a weapon. You took the pain of the German people and worked them up into a frenzy with your scapegoating. When you make the order, you pay the bill. That's the way the deal works. And Hitler does recognize the people trapped in the river with him. They were the magic carpet that he rode into power, the people in the crowds of his constant rallies, the brown shirts, the eager soldiers cut down in the millions at war, the people whose anger he turned into such a terrifying weapon, and it wasn't so fun when that weapon was pointed at him. But it isn't just the water and the other sinners that Hitler has to worry about. Just like in some of the other levels, there are monsters here too. Furies swoop down, and Medusa slithers through the murk, biting and devouring anyone unlucky enough to be in her path. But just as these Greek monsters are zeroing in on Germany's most famous mustache wearer, Mephisto snaps his fingers again. But it's not the reprieve from the pain that Hitler is hoping for. In fact, it's about to get a whole lot worse in the 6th circle, Heresy. Here, Hitler and millions of others are trapped inside flaming tombs, feeling their skin bubble and boil while being unable to die. And can you believe that the worst is still to come? Outside of the tombs, other heretics walk across the burning sand as fire rains down from the sky. Amongst it all, Mephisto floats over the top of Hitler's burning tomb, watching with more than a little enjoyment as Hitler screams in pain. Your religious beliefs have always been a fascinating subject, Hitler, Mephisto says. You claim to be a Christian to get into power. You'll say you believe anything to get what you want. But the only altar you worship at is the altar of Adolf Hitler. Hitler doesn't have a witty retort, just more screaming on account of being on fire, which admittedly takes some of the fun out of this. The Circle of Heresy punishes all who aren't true to their beliefs. There are even popes and bishops down there, the ones that use their station to exert power. This Circle of the Inferno also punishes false teachers, another title that Hitler could easily lay claim to. He pulled the wool over the eyes of a whole nation. He mobilized them to war and genocide by convincing them that he knew the true source of their problems, the supposed nefarious actions of Jews and other minorities. But as much as Mephisto enjoys watching Hitler get flame-broiled, there are still even more diabolical circles of hell for the Nazi head honcho to experience. And why wait? Hitler's gonna have all of eternity to enjoy all this anyway. Mephisto clicks his fingers again, and Hitler's freed from the fire tomb of Heresy. And now he appears in a place where the horrors are far stranger and varied. The seventh circle, violence. And this is where things are gonna get real, as all you Dante fans out there already know. Because violence is one of the most common and severe sins, and there are 3 different rings, each of which will punish different types of violence. And Hitler gets to experience all 3. In the first ring, the ring of violence against one's neighbor, Hitler is thrown into a boiling pit of blood. The first victims of his reign of terror were the German Jews and other national minorities harassed by his brown shirts. Mephisto just floats around the edge of the pit while Hitler screams and flails. And when he tries to climb out, the 4 centaurs prowling around the edge fire arrows into his body. See what we mean when we told you that the punishments really get a lot crazier from here on in? In the second ring, violence against self, which Hitler's last act also earns him a place in, he's transformed into a gnarled old tree in a state of constant suffering. Here, the harpies will tear into his bark and branches with their talons, ripping pieces of him away in a sense of gleeful sadism. And in the third ring, the ring of violence against God, art, and nature, things really aren't getting any easier for the former Fuhrer. He's yet again enjoying an infinite desert where fire rains from above, just like the fires of the makeshift crematoriums he and his regime had used on the millions they systematically murdered. Of course, throughout the violence ring, he's seen thousands of familiar faces, soldiers, SS officers, and members of the Gestapo killed by the Reds or in Allied bombing raids. All of them had bought so gleefully into the violence that Hitler had ushered in. Millions of the people in this circle of hell were there because of him. But if you thought Hitler's pain in Dante's Inferno was over, just wait, because somehow there are even deeper and darker hells yet to come. With a yawn, Mephisto snaps Hitler out of the realm of violence that he made his life's work and into the 8th circle, fraud, or the Malboge. High above this literally godforsaken land, Geryon, the monster of fraud, takes flight. A half-reptile, half-hairy brute with a man's face and a scorpion's tail ruling over the realm. And because there's a hell of a lot of fraud in the world, Hitler is going to get a real tasting platter of pain and misery here. First, in the realm of panderers and seducers, Hitler will face some appropriate consequences. Here, sinners who have exploited the passions of others and so drove them to serve their own interests are themselves driven and scourged. He is forced to march around through a deep ditch while horned demons whip him and all the others from above for their crimes. In the zone of flatterers, people who use language to play upon the emotions of others, Hitler is submerged in a giant pit full of human feces. And this is where he runs into his old friend Goebbels. Nearby, in the realm of sorcerers, Hitler recognizes the face of the Tulis Society, a group of occultists who justified Nazi ideals. Their punishment is to have their heads twisted around so they're forced to walk backwards forever, blinded by their own bitter tears. Hitler, meanwhile, will be spending time in the realm of barators, politicians who took advantage of their offices to benefit and enrich themselves. Here, Hitler gets to take a nice dip in a scalding cauldron of pitch, where demons called the Malebranche tear away at his flesh with their evil claws. At least he's still got plenty of friends from the Third Reich cabinet to keep him company. And then, in the realm of hypocrites, he's forced to wear a robe made of solid lead welded around his body. He has to walk down a narrow path, bearing its incredible weight, and then it's off to face the punishment of thieves, along with every other SS officer who took the belongings of prisoners at the concentration camps. Here, poisonous lizards and snakes attack them endlessly. And of course, causing a literal world war earns Hitler a place in the company of other historic sowers of discord. Here, a giant demon with a bloody sword gleefully hacks him into pieces, only for his body to reform over time so the deed can be done again and again. The beauty of hell is that everything hurts more down here. Mephisto checks his watch. Come on, Adolf, we can't spend all eternity here. Well, not yet anyway. Got one more circle, and then you get to meet the big man himself. And this is how Hitler arrives in the 9th circle, treachery. Hitler, as a traitor to his country and his allies, is partially frozen into a huge block of ice. The rest of his body is exposed to brutal winds, but in a block of ice near him, he spies the half-frozen body of a man he once called his ally, Heinrich Himmler, leader of the SS. However, their relationship had turned frosty in the closing weeks of the war. Himmler tried to cut a deal with the Allies behind Hitler's back, and for that, Hitler ordered him stripped of his titles and arrested. "Himmler!" Hitler yells, and then turns to Mephisto. "Why would you put me here with this wretched traitor?" That makes Mephisto laugh. Glass houses, mein Führer. You've got awfully strong opinions about betrayal. Maybe we should call in Ernst Röhm and the other Sturmabteilung that you had murdered in the Night of the Long Knives, despite their loyalty to you. What do you think they'd have to say about treachery? Hitler's too proud to just shut up. After a life of being such a blowhard, he rants and raves, spits and swears, so much so that Mephisto wonders if a man's pure hate could melt the ice around him. Perhaps Mephisto figures it's time to bring him all the way down so Hitler can meet the big dog. And we're not talking about Cerberus. With another snap of Mephisto's fingers, Hitler is standing in the domain of Satan himself, the very bottom layer of hell. The mere sight of him makes Hitler fall silent. A gigantic creature with leathery wings and 3 faces, each of which chews on a different human body, all 6 of its hateful eyes staring down at Adolf Hitler with such disdain that it could make oil come to a boil. For your consideration, O Dark Lord, Mephisto says with a bow, Adolf Hitler. I have shown him the options. What punishment do you think we should commit him to? Satan pauses for a moment, mulling it over as Hitler quivers in his little Nazi boots. Well, there are many that would fit, Satan says. But for a case as truly special as you, I don't see why we couldn't have you moving up and down the rings forever. After all, isn't variety the spice of death? Want more of Hitler being incredibly unhappy? Why not go check out What If Adolf Hitler Woke Up in the 21st Century? Or watch this instead.